For this video, I am going to explain fallen angel and natal charts and whether or not you have this type of energy in your natal chart. Now, this is not a traditional talking point in astrology. You might hear some people refer to the 12th house as fallen angels, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But when it comes to astrology, fallen angels and natal charts is not really a thing. The reason why I am framing this energy in that type of way is because I resonate a lot with the fallen angel archetype. And if you are somebody in the spiritual community, um, you may notice that some people work with certain deities, work with certain angels, even work with demons, and so on and so forth, and may work with animals and whatnot, especially if you're in the indigenous American community. That's a big thing. For me, I resonate a lot with the fallen angel archetype. And when I was analyzing my chart, I realized how much of this energy is in my chart. So framing it this way has helped me realize why I am the way that I am and why I move the way that I move. So I figured, why not make a video about this? Because you never know, this may help the next person out who studies astrology. So if you feel like you have fallen angel energy all up in your aura and you just can't explain why, or you can't really like pinpoint what it is that makes you feel this way, this video might just explain it. First and foremost, the fallen angel energy, what does that mean exactly? Well, when it comes to fallen angels, this is the type of person who may have came with pure intent, wanted the best for somebody or for some community, and the fact that they are just a bit different, just thinks in a different way, maybe moves in a certain way. People don't like that. So therefore, this type of person was casted out, exiled. And many people know the story of Lucifer, who was the leader of the fallen angels. And now, this is not a this talking point, okay? This talking point in itself is like fallen angel energy. A lot of people may not see it this way, but I feel like with the story of Lucifer, he has some points. And the reason why he became a fallen angel was because he rebelled. But it didn't start off this way. He just felt a certain way. He felt like, why can't I be independent? Why can't I be my own God? Why do I have to bow down to this main particular God? And why I have to be beneath humans? Like, I have my own light. Why can't I be free? Right? I agree with Lucifer. Now, the way that Lucifer is framed in the Bible, he became the devil and so on and so forth, cast it out. But to me, he had points. He had points. Now, to a lot of people, they will look at me like I'm crazy, like you siding with Lucifer, you demon worshiper and all that stuff. So therefore, that in itself gives fallen angels. So Lucifer was like the leader of the fallen angels. And people who possess this type of energy carry this fallen angel archetype. So, with that being said, in astrology, you have some planets in signs. It depends on how it's set up, where it delivers this concoction of fallen angel energy. Now, in the 12th house, this house is easily fallen angel energy because this is the house of the hidden, the mystique, the other side, spiritual plane. It also represents being outcasted or exiled. So any planet that falls into the 12th house gives off fallen angel energy. Now, with me, I have my Lilith, which is not a planet, it's more of an asteroid. I have my Lilith and my Lucifer asteroid in the 12th house. So anybody with this placement off the bat is given fallen angel energy because, like I said, Lucifer was the leader of the fallen angels, and Lilith, she was misunderstood and casted out of the Garden of Eden. So if you also carry this like misunderstood energy, like I said, may came with pure intent, but the way that you think and the way that you move, some people might not, fuck with that basically, and they just cast you out. So having those two, either one or two or both, in the 12th house is off the bat fallen angel energy. And other planets apply to that as well. Because, like I said, anything in the 12th house is already given that type of energy. So, if you have Mars in the 12th house, that's like the exiled warrior, the hidden warrior. If you have Venus in the 12th house, that's like that forbidden love type of fallen angel energy. If you have the Sun in the 12th house, that is basically your light being casted out, being hidden. Um, that gives fallen angel energy. And Pluto, any planet that goes into the 12th house, gives off fallen angel energy. However, besides the 12th house, there are other houses that give fallen angel energy, but it depends on how the planets and the signs are set up. And this is where I get more abstract with this talking point. And you don't really hear this in astrology, but when I break it down, it's going to make sense. With fallen angel energy in the other houses, like I said, it depends on how it's set up. Where the 12th house off the bat gives off fallen angel because of its hidden, exiled, mystique energy. The other houses don't have that, so it depends on how it's all set up. Now, since this is something new that I am diving into, I don't have it all figured out yet. However, I do recognize this. Fallen angel energy can easily be felt in the later houses. So from the first to like the fifth house, to me, doesn't really give fallen angel energy, but it depends on how everything is set up. But it doesn't easily give fallen angel energy. Um, Even with certain signs in those houses. However, the later houses, like ninth, 10th, and 11th, can give off some extreme fallen angel energy because the later houses represents like the elders, the more mature houses. The first few houses is like the youngsters, and the older houses is more of like the old souls, and the old souls carry this type of wisdom that youngsters don't have, and it can go either way. And a lot of times you find like the rebellion really with old souls, even though the youngsters have this rebel energy. It's not really, to me, it's not really much of like a rebel type of thing. It's just them trying to figure themselves out versus like people with old souls who are rebellious, but there's a reason and a purpose behind that, if this all makes sense. So the later houses to me gives off like fallen angel energy if you have this certain type of setup. So, like I said, it all depends on how these planets fall within the signs. So, these are the signs and planets that I see give off this energy when it's set up in a certain way. So, Pisces, because besides it being like a spiritual sign, it's also very sacrificial and giving themselves for the greater good a lot of the times. Um, and with that, that comes with misunderstandings of certain things. Think of Jesus Christ, who is also described with like a Piscean energy. Jesus was somebody who gave himself for the good of the collective, and he was casted out and murdered for that. And he sacrificed himself for that. So to me, that's fallen angel energy. So Pisces, Scorpio, it's Scorpio already thrives on the darker side of things. And because it thrives on the darker side of things and life and whatnot, it's very misunderstood. It can easily be looked at as like evil energy when a lot of the times it's not. So, fallen angel energy. Aquarius is the big one because Aquarius is the rebel sign. So, very different, rebel, thinks outside the box, very Luciferian type of energy when you frame it in a certain way. So Pisces, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Capricorn. Capricorn is another one because of Saturn. Now, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. Capricorn ruler of Saturn. I don't know how you want to frame that, but Saturn gives off such a strict. I'm gonna test you. You're gonna fall, but you need this fall because you need to be tested. It gives that type of energy. To me, it's very much fallen angel, and I'm gonna explain that in a second. So Pisces, Scorpio, Aquarius, Capricorn, and the planets Neptune, Pluto, Uranus or Uranus, however you want to pronounce that, and of course Saturn. So I'm going to use a lot of my placements just to give an example of how this all could be set up. And I'm going to do my best to explain placements that I don't have that I feel can give off this energy. So bear with me here. So the reason why, like I said, 9th, 10th, 11th carries old souls, I didn't really explain much of like the mid houses. So the 6th, 7th, and 8th, that is such an in between because there's a shift going on. The 6th house represents like your everyday mundane, and it also like represents in a way like the collective because you're dealing with like service and all that. The 7th house deals with relationships, and the 8th house is that Scorpio energy, the taboo, the occult, and all that. So it's not like the first few houses where it feels pretty young and fresh. The 6th, 7th, and 8th kind of starts diving into this shift that can give off this fallen angel energy depending on how it sets up. But the 9th, 10th, and 11th, the 9th of philosophy, the 10th of like your career, and the 11th which is the collective, very much so. So within my chart, I have my sun, Venus, and Saturn all in Pisces in my 11th house of Pisces. So like I said, Pisces is that spiritual, sacrificial energy. And when it's in the house of the collective, it's like, especially with the sun there, it's like I'm meant to shine light on the collective in a spiritual way. And when you have the sun in your Venus, in your Saturn, one of those planets, two of those planets, all three, um, this is the type of group that always finds themselves in organizations, certain like groups, events, community stuff, or in politics. Funny enough, I always did find myself in like some type of like community work or organizations since I was a teenager. So that's really interesting when I started learning about my chart. With the sun in the 11th house, though, now this is where the fallen angel starts coming in. So, people with displacement, they find themselves in groups, but a lot of the times you end up thinking different from the group. It's like you see something that nobody else sees, and you feel like if you put in your thoughts, your 2 cents, or just like recommend something that can help ascend the group. A lot of time people with this type of placement, they don't end up saying anything because the fact that they think so different, they feel like they might get casted out the group. So a lot of times they stay silent. And with that, you end up hiding your light, and therefore you never get to shine through the group. So with this placement, it's not that you're meant to be in the group, you're meant to start something. The fact that you think this way and you come with pure intent, and people might not fuck with it, you most likely need to start and do your own thing. And it's such a battle. For me, my 11th house has been such a battle this year between my sun. My Venus is another story, but my sun and my Saturn. Now, here's the thing with Saturn. Saturn is that planet that gives off judgment. It exiles you on purpose because you're supposed to go through certain tests in order to ascend, and that usually happens a lot around your Saturn return. So right now I'm at the end of my Saturn return, and for those who don't know, Saturn returns usually come around between like the ages of 28 and like your early 30s, and like I think somewhere when you hit like 50. And around this time, this is where you are mostly tested of whether or not you have learned certain lessons. Are you ready to ascend, or are you going to remain the same? So with me, I have this, I don't really consider it an issue, but to me, I'm very like to myself. And for some reason, I do end up finding myself in like groups. And it's because I do care about a lot of community stuff and all that. But I see a lot of flaws in certain groups. And I'm just like, if they keep doing this, they're not going to get ahead. If they keep doing that, they're going to fall behind. And I always end up being right. And I do be wanting to say some things, but I'm like, they're not going to like what I have to say. So for me, it's like I've been learning that maybe, not maybe, but I'm supposed to do my own thing within communities, but not technically be in a group, if this is all making sense. And it's been a big struggle because, like I said, this is like my Saturn return. So Saturn is like kind of like, I feel the fall, I feel the exile, especially of course, this past couple of years because of all of these tests. Like, just to be a little bit open. So, with, for example, YouTube alone, it has been a challenge this past year. I haven't been posting exactly what I've been wanting to really put out because there are certain people who watch me. I've been told by certain people, like, they said this like more broadly, but like I I got what they were saying. It was just like, we watch what you do on social media. That's one thing. Um in the beginning, when I was putting out videos talking about me being a part of like Sandy Ground, which is the oldest Black community in the United States, on record. Okay, don't fight with me here. I know some people in the South is like, we got old, whatever. That's another story for another time. But when I only put out like 2 videos, but then I stopped because it was like, on the back end, I was getting critiqued up the wazoo. And it's like, I have my own voice. I can speak for myself. I'm not trying to like stir anything, but I was getting stuff like that. And I had to take a step back. I had to take a step back and really, really reflect on certain things. And it's like, with Saturn here is really putting me through the test of, are you ready to step up and do what you're meant to do for the collective, or you're just going to remain in the background? So this is where the whole fallen angel comes into play, because with Lucifer was someone who was reflecting a lot. Like, he was fighting this urge to not rebel. And it was to the point where like it was really like bothering him. And after God came out with this plan of, I'm going to create humans and you angels are going to be, helping out these humans, kind of like being beneath them. Lucifer was like, okay, this is where I draw the line. So for a while he was reflecting, fighting this, but after that last straw, he was like, the gloves are off. The gloves are off. So this is what my 11th house felt like to me these past couple of years. So maybe you're somebody with your sun in the 11th house. You are meant to shine your light on the collective, but it's going to have to be in your own way. And if you don't, you'll end up falling in the background of the groups when you're meant to be the one to put your perspectives on things. And with the Saturn in the 11th house, it gives off that, it tests you on that. And the Venus, it's another story for another time. But yeah, so that's the 11th house. However, you can have your like Aquarius in the 11th. Actually, the 11th house is the natural ruler of Aquarius. So that is the rebel energy right there in itself. So if you have like Aquarius, any type of Aquarius in that house, if you have Uranus, Scorpio, anything mixing with that Aquarius energy, yeah, you're definitely giving off like fallen angel energy. Now, speaking of Aquarius, so with my 10th house, that is where my Aquarius falls into. So my MC, my midheaven, which is like your career, what you're supposed to do in life. My midheaven falls in Aquarius. So with my career, whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing, which I already know, I'm supposed to be a writer, which I've been doing already. Um, I'm supposed to deliver something that is very untraditional, different, um, very rebellish in a way. So if you have Aquarius as your MC, you give off fallen angel, because whatever it is that you're going to do in your career, being a rebel and all, people are going to, you you may feel like exile, casted out, climbing to the top of your career because of how much of a rebel you are in that field. So off the bat, fallen angel energy. Also too, if you have Scorpio in your midheaven, that off the bat gives off fallen angel energy, because you're diving into the taboo of things. A lot of the times you will find these people as detectives, forensics, working in like the morgue or cemeteries, or it can be set up in a more different type of way. So somebody that I know with their Scorpio as their midheaven is this actress named Monica Bellucci. She is, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, that she is a beautiful actress from Italy. And I know she's a Libra sun and Leo moon. She has a lot of Leo in her chart, which does scream like front and center on the stage. Um, However, for some reason, America don't really want to put her in films, kind of like cast it out. Either that or she just doesn't want to deal with like America films. But besides from that, I did see a video where somebody was talking about Monica Bellucci and how she's into like the dark side because she likes to pick roles where she dives into the darkest side of things. And because of that, she's seen as somebody like an Angelina Jolie who gives off this like dark facade. But the thing is with that, because her Scorpio is in her midheaven, career wise, it makes sense that she would pick those roles unconsciously knowing, because I don't know if she knows her natal chart or not. But because the fact that she dives into darker roles, it makes sense because of her Scorpio midheaven. So because of that, she gets looked at as a certain way, kind of like casted out of certain things. But at the same time, she's just too beautiful to ignore, so she stays around. Um, and people can't really they can't really figure her out too much because she doesn't say much at all. That gives me fallen angel energy. Also, too, I have my Mercury and Mars there. And Mercury and Mars doesn't really give off fallen angel energy because Mercury is the planet of communication and Mars is, the warrior. But just because it gives off that fiery energy doesn't mean that it's like fallen angel type of energy. That can easily be put as like courage, like the energy of courage and whatnot. Although you do gotta have some courage to like be a fallen angel to rebel and all that. But besides the point, Mercury and Mars doesn't really give off fallen angel energy. However, if you have your Aquarius and Mercury and your Aquarius and Mars, which I do, that gives off fallen angel because now with Aquarius and Mars, that's like that rebel warrior, and then your Aquarius and Mercury is like unconventional, different way of communicating. And if you have it in retrograde, because my Aquarius Mercury is in retrograde, now it's something entirely different because it's very internal, and that could be another. I could talk about retrogrades in another video, but that kind of gives it more of a twist of fallen angel. So yeah, if you have that in like your later houses, like I have mine in my 10th house, very much fallen angel energy. Now, the ninth house, which is the house of philosophy, for me, I have my Uranus and my Neptune in my ninth house of Capricorn. Now, Uranus is the natural ruler of Aquarius. Mine is in Capricorn, and Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces. Mine is in Capricorn. And Capricorn, which is the ruler of Saturn. Yeah, that's fallen angel energy because so the way that I navigate my ninth house of philosophy, since I am a writer, I write a lot of dark fiction stories, but I add philosophies from like the darker side of things. And because of that, people have questioned my work because I write so different. And that in itself is fallen angel energy. So if your ninth house is set up that way, or if you have like Scorpio in the ninth house, which is that taboo occult meets philosophy, that's fallen angel. If you have Piscean energy, in that ninth house of philosophy, it could give off that energy. If that type of energy is going against the status quo and challenging like education, religion, certain philosophies, that is pretty much fallen angel energy. And also, if you have Lilith in any of these houses, which I forgot to mention, fallen angel energy, especially like, say, like if you have Lilith in your 11th house, um, which Lilith represents like your hidden power, your most powerful, but for some reason it's hidden within these groups of like being in the 11th house. You are someone that definitely gets casted out of things, but you're meant to shine in groups, kind of like the sun in the 11th house. But anyway, so if you have Lilith in any of these placements, also fallen angel energy. Capricorn too, especially for me, for instance, having that in my ninth house, since it's ruled by Saturn and it's pretty much the sign of the builder. That's why it's called Capricorn is the goat. That's what they say. It's the builder, somebody that makes their way to the top, somebody that has a lot of ambition. They can be misunderstood of how ambitious they are, but they do not care. They're gonna make their way to the top. That's why they're the goat. Um, so having that energy in your aura can give off fallen angel, especially if you're somebody with a lot of ambition and very misunderstood. Somebody who, a singer that was a Capricorn, I believe Aaliyah was a Capricorn. And I believe she also had her son in the 12th house. So, and she always came off like very mysterious, wore a lot of black. I know Capricorn loves the color black. And she was somebody that was cast out of the industry. If you look at this conspiracy of how she passed and how angelic she was too, yeah, definitely fallen angel for sure. Now with the houses in the middle of the natal chart, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th, like I said, it's not like the youngsters, but it's not like the old souls of the natal chart. It's in the middle. It's in that transitioning phase. So for me, my 7th house is in Scorpio, and I have my North Node in Scorpio and my Pluto in Scorpio in the 7th house of relationships. And for me, when it comes to people, it always feels karmic, the people that I end up speaking to for a while, or I end up really becoming friends with, or partners, or whatever. Even like organizations, like I feel like as if I was meant to meet this person, or this person was meant to meet me. And I go very deep in conversations or in certain works with people because of my Scorpio energy in this house. And if you have like maybe it gets a little bit tricky because I would say like your Aquarius in the 7th house could bring that fallen angel in a way, but not really. Not really. So it's a tricky one. I think because the fact that my North Node is in Scorpio, which is very karmic, um, it can bring this energy because I usually take people down this path with me, not intentionally, but it just always happens. And you know what too? Usually people open up their dark side to me when I have one-on-one conversations with them. For some reason, it's like they feel so comfortable telling me things that I didn't even ask to hear about, but I just always end up hearing like certain things about them that nobody else really knows. And from there, it can lead into like unconventional conversations, especially with my communication being Aquarius Mercury retrograde like. So it's like I just be dragging people down this path with me. Not not intentionally, but it just happens. Now with the sixth house, which deals with service, which is kind of like the collective. You are dealing with people. Um, I have my Scorpio moon and my Scorpio Jupiter in the sixth house. And my Jupiter is also in retrograde. Um, and my everyday mundane feels like it's like a dark priest walking around all the time. Everything feels like a ritual. Everything, like my setup has to be like a certain way. And if my everyday mundane just ends up being feeling like a mundane thing, I get so drained. Um, and how I bring my service to like the community. Like I said, I don't be meaning to drag people down like a certain path, but I do end up getting people to like see things from a different perspective. And that could pretty much give off fallen angel energy. Kind of like how Lucifer, since he was very charismatic, he was able to get a lot of like angels to agree with him. Like, yeah, like, why do we have to bow down to humans and blah, 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 blah. Like, why can't we be independent? So, it feels like that. Um, if you have like, now I would say Pisces in the sixth house of service because it's very sacrificial. Um, but it all like see, it all depends on how this is all set up. And when you start going into the beginner houses, to me, it doesn't really give off fallen angel. Maybe if you have like your Lilith in something or something in like your fourth house of family, maybe, maybe because maybe you're like the black sheep of the family. Um, so it gets a little bit tricky when I start thinking about like the early houses and the mid. But like I said, this is something new that I'm like diving into. So the more I study this, the more clear everything will be. So one more placement that I have to mention, even though I didn't mention it earlier. Now I know I said that Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, and Saturn gives off fallen angels energy depending on how it's set up in the houses. But another placement that gives off fallen angel is the Scorpio moon because and even though I made a video talking about this, I'll explain a little bit about it here. But with the moon being in Scorpio, they say that it's in its fall because pretty much the Scorpio energy with the moon is too intense. So therefore the moon like falls into the energy or whatever. Now that alone, with that being said of being the moon falling, that is fallen angel energy. People with Scorpio moon placements like myself is like we thrive on the darker side of the moon and therefore we could get misunderstood on a lot of things. So it becomes that fallen angel energy. People with Scorpio moons, yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. But with that being said, I'm gonna leave it right here for now. And the more that I study on this and have it all resonate with me, the more I'll make videos about like fallen angel energy because I feel like this will help out a lot of people because like look at the world we're living in today. it's becoming more chaotic, and it's best for you to know thyself as much as possible because of everything that's going on, especially with AI coming into play. I saw something where they created a AI actress and a AI R&B singer, and then you have these AI influencers. So it's like humans against AI. One thing that AI will never have is the spirit. So the more you tap into yourself, the more you can overcome what's about to come down the pipes, especially in the next few years with AI replacing jobs and all that. AI can never replace the spirit. So, and AI doesn't even have astrology charts, first and foremost. So with that being said, the more I have this resonate with me, the more I'm going to make videos on this because I feel like this can help somebody out. So yeah,